Our next doctrine, the little God's doctrine. All of the faith preachers teach that if you are a Christian, you are in fact a little God. Watch this from Creflo Dollar.
Now, in verse 26 and verse 27, God now submits himself to this principle of everything producing after its own kind. And in verse 26 and 27, let's read it out loud. Ready? Read. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. Now that's interesting, because if everything produces after its own kind, we now see God producing man. And if God now produces man, and everything produces after its own kind, if horses get together, they produce what? And if dogs get together, they produce what? If cats get together, they produce what? But if the Godhead gets together and say, let us make man, then what are they producing? They're producing gods. Now, I got to hit this thing real hard in the very beginning, because I ain't got time to go through all this. But I'm going to say to you right now, you are gods, little g. You are gods because you came from God, and you are gods. You're not just human. The only human part about you is this physical body that you live in. The real me is just like God.
The real me is just like God. Blasphemy. Dear friends, when the Bible says that God created man in his image, that means that as human beings, you and I are the pinnacle of God's creation. We're the pinnacle of his creation. And we have the potential and the capacity through a saving relationship with Jesus Christ to know God. None of the other created order has that privilege and ability. I grew up with dogs. Black labs, most of them. I love dogs. A few years ago, my wife got me a little dog. It's not a lab. It's a little frou-frou dog, but it is technically a dog. And you know, I wanted a big dog. She didn't want a dog at all, and this was a compromise. So, but you know, I've come to love the socks off that little thing. But you know what? The greatest, smartest dog in the world will never know God, because dogs are not created in God's image. We are. We have the potential and the capacity through a saving relationship with Christ to know God, but that does not mean that we are gods. The Bible is very clear. There is only one God, and he is a jealous God who will not share his glory with another. And if I remember my Bible correctly, wasn't the desire to be just like God kind of what led to the whole fall thing in the first place? Isn't that ironic? The very first temptation, which led to the very first sin, which led to this whole fallen state in the first place, the desire to be just like God, is what the faith preachers teach as truth. They want you to believe it. The very thing that led to the fallen state in the first place. How ironic. Who else in the Bible wanted to be just like God? Lucifer. Satan did. He wanted the worship that God was getting for himself, and he rose up in rebellion against God, and it got him and a third of the angels along with him kicked out of heaven. And so this little God's doctrine is quite literally a doctrine of demons.